we're going to talk about a revolution sparked by one man who wasn't a revolutionary at all. He was an accidental milkman who ended up re-engineering an entire nation's food system, and in the process changed millions and millions of lives.
Okay, to really get a handle on just how big this revolution was, you have to picture India back in the mid-20th century. It was a country that literally couldn't produce enough milk for its own people. We're talking about a nation struggling with major scarcity, relying on imports just to get by. And now, fast forward to today, India is the largest milk producer in the entire world. So how? How did that happen? Well, a shift that dramatic, going from milk-deficient to #1, that doesn't just happen by accident. It's the story of fixing a system that was completely and utterly broken. So before we can even get to the solution, we've got to understand the problem. And to do that, you have to see just how bad things were for the farmers, the people at the very bottom of the food chain. Okay, picture this. It's the 1940s, and if you're a dairy farmer in Gujarat, you are completely trapped. There was this private monopoly, a company called Polson Limited, and they worked with a whole network of middlemen. They controlled everything. They were the gatekeepers to the massive, lucrative market in Bombay. And boy, did they use that power to squeeze every single penny of profit out of the farmers. And here's the crazy part, the real trap. The farmers had zero say in what they were paid. And get this, the more milk they produced, the lower the prices would go. The contractors knew the milk would spoil, so they knew the farmers were desperate. I mean, it was a totally rigged system. The people doing all the hard work, they were getting practically nothing. So who could possibly fix a system this broken? You might think it would be a farmer or maybe some kind of activist. Nope. The person who changed everything was an engineer. An engineer who, you could say, ended up in the right place at the wrong time, or maybe, just maybe, it was exactly the right time. His name was Verghese Kurien, and let's be clear, he did not want to be there. He was this brilliant mechanical engineer, just got back from Michigan State University in the US. He was stuck serving out a government bond in this tiny town called Anand, which he thought was a total dead end. He was literally just crossing days off the calendar, waiting to get out. But then, something shifted. He started to see the daily struggle of the local farmers. They were being led by this incredible local leader, Tribhuvandas Patel, and they'd started a tiny cooperative. They came to Kurien and asked for a simple favor. Can you help us fix our machinery? And right then, in that moment, it just clicked for Kurien. He realized the problem wasn't a broken machine. The problem was the entire broken system, and he decided to stay and fix it. So what was this big revolutionary idea of his? You know, it wasn't some new piece of technology or a fancy invention. It was a new way of thinking about ownership. It was a model that would become famous all over the world. The Anand pattern. At its heart, the idea was so simple it was radical. Just make the farmers the owners. That's it. Cut out the middlemen completely. Let the farmers control the entire supply chain, from procurement all the way to marketing. Just that one shift, that one change in who owns the system, it changed absolutely everything. Okay, so here's how it actually works. It's a 3-tier system. First, at the village level, all the farmers get together and form a cooperative society. That's where they collect the milk and get paid for its quality. Then, all those village societies join forces to create a district milk union. The union owns the processing plants, the place where the milk gets turned into products. And finally, all the unions in a state form a marketing federation, which sells everything under one single powerful brand like Amul. See? It's a structure that's owned from the bottom up. You know, what's so wild is how ahead of its time this idea was. Let's put it in today's terms. Think about a company like Uber. It's a platform that connects drivers with riders, right? But all the profit, all the value, gets extracted and sent to corporate shareholders. The Ananda pattern is the exact opposite. It's like if Uber were completely owned and run by the drivers. Imagine that. The drivers would set the prices, they'd make the rules, and they would keep the profits. That's the difference. And this quote from Kurien himself just nails his whole philosophy. Since we have common pockets, the fund will never be a problem for me. What he's saying is he didn't see the collective wealth of millions of small farmers as a weakness. He saw it as this incredible, unbeatable strength. If the farmers own the whole system, of course they'll have funding. They're investing in themselves. So you take this powerful model that's working on a local level, and what happens when you blow it up, when you scale it across an entire nation? Well, you get a revolution, a white revolution to be exact, also known as Operation Flood.
And the results, they were just staggering. Look at this growth. This wasn't some quick little bump. This was a sustained, decades-long transformation. It's literally the story of turning scarcity into abundance.
And to put that into a global perspective, today, India produces more than 25% of all the milk in the entire world, more than a quarter. That's just incredible.
But of all the numbers, this one might be the most important. 80%. Because the farmers own the system, up to 80% of every rupee a consumer spends goes directly back to the farmer. That level of return, it's almost unheard of in agriculture anywhere on the planet.
But look, this story isn't just about milk. The real impact is human. This became India's biggest rural employment program, giving a stable income to more than 80 million families. And maybe most importantly, it empowered millions of women in rural areas. Since women do over 70% of the work in dairy, this gave them a direct paycheck, often for the first time, and with it, a powerful new voice in their homes and communities.
So when you step back and look at everything Kurien accomplished, this monumental achievement, what's the big takeaway here? What's the core lesson? Well, I think it's this. True innovation isn't always about creating something brand new. Kurien's genius wasn't inventing a new gadget. His innovation was social. It was structural. He looked at a system that was fundamentally unfair, totally inefficient, and he re-engineered it from the ground up so that it would finally serve the very people it was supposed to support in the first place.
And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. In our world today, which is so full of platforms designed to extract value, where middlemen are still the gatekeepers in so many industries, what other systems out there are just crying out for a Kurien-level rethink? Where else do we need to fix what's broken and put the power and the profit back into the hands of the people who actually do the work?